Hi, this is Andrew Twidwell, owner of ABT Plumbing, Electric, Heat, and Air. Once again with the show You Got This. It's a show of DIY do's and don'ts, and I nailed it! That was good, because we've had some problems before. On the last show, I kind of took 3 or 4 takes to get there. Anyway, so I'm stoked about that. I've got Rosalie Brown in LA, and he's going to the Dodgers game tonight. And then I've got Dee Dee sitting next to me, who is the head of our HVAC department. So yeah, we got a fun show ahead for you guys. We're mainly going to be talking about HVAC. We could just we were talking off camera about embarrassing our teenage children who are now in their late 20s. But boy, that was fun, wasn't it? Just embarrassing them. Hugging my son in 8th grade in front of all his friends while I was playing basketball. Oh, that was the best. Yeah.
Well, I think too, so you raised a son and a daughter. I raised 2 daughters, and the worst thing that you can do when you have a teenage daughter is admit that you exist or have her friends know that you exist. So my older daughter, who's technically in her 30s now, that makes me want to choke a little bit. She really had some boy trouble, meaning they all liked her a lot, and so she had a lot of attention from boys. And my favorite thing to do would be when a boyfriend would come over, make them as uncomfortable as possible. I mean, here's the thing. She was going to be mad at me no matter what I did. She's a teenage girl. And I'm a complete idiot no matter what I do. So I might as well enjoy the ride. You know those people that say, I'm in trouble anyway, I'm going to go all in? That was me, okay? So, I mean, what are you going to do? You hugged your kid. I asked my teenage daughter's boyfriend when we were alone in the same room. She was off doing something. I said, oh, did you hear? She got her test back. And there was no test, and the test could have meant anything. Right. And
algebra.
Yeah, driver's test. Could have been anything. So his face, just like really, so dead silence, blank stare, look of horror. I'm standing there, arms crossed, loving it, until she walks in the room and says, "What did you do to my boyfriend?" Whatever. Right. So that was actually
today about that.
If we were to bring it up, she would probably laugh now because the guy, was kind of a dummy, and I knew that. And wasn't really a good life choice. But she
could laugh about it now.
She can. She wasn't laughing for about 5 years, but she laughs now. Yeah.
Fortunately, Theo laughs at me about it now. I can laugh about it now.
Theo's a very nice child, though. Theo's a very nice child.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is.
I'll vouch for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is.
Sometimes. Yeah.
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 Okay. My dad used to turn the water off to our house when we'd be taking showers.
Oh, yeah.
To go on a date. He'd just turn the water off, and then we'd freak out. Or another time, he would just constantly ring the doorbell, and weed be like, no one's answering the door. So he'd go out there, and he'd stand there with, like, weeds in his hand, being like, no, here's your date,
Yeah, because you guys had a house of girls.
Yeah, right? Yeah. He just, yeah, he was pretty brutal.
I put a tankless water heater in for a friend, and he would turn the hot water heater off while they were in the shower. So, yeah. Because you can actually just turn those off. You just turn the power button off and no more hot water. But he did have a teenage boy that spent a little too much time in the shower. So, yeah. Half-hour showers are a little too much. So, yeah. I'm done there. Anyway, so good time raising children and giving them a hard time. So that was fun. But let's talk a little about HVACs, because we've had, I don't know about you all. We're actually finally getting some mild temperatures this week. We're recording this on Wednesday, and I think the high is going to be below 90. So that's nice. Our HVAC systems have been working really, 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 really hard up to this point. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about some of the things that we see. So I've got one story, and I kind of shared it with you guys off camera. So we own a building in another state, so I don't have anybody to work on it other than my people out there. I don't have any employees to work on it. But I got a call Saturday that one of our tenants didn't have any air conditioning, and it's in Minnesota, and it was in the 80s with like 70% humidity or whatever, something ridiculous. So you got to have air conditioning. It's the top floor of a 4-story building in an attic, converted attic, so it gets really hot up there. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get anybody out there till Monday, but we were able to get somebody out there Monday, which I was pretty excited about. And lo and behold, our tenant thought it would be a nice gesture to close some of the registers to save us some electricity, which they don't actually pay for because it's kind of they're traveling nurses, so they're only there for like 3 months, so they just pay us a flat fee. It's kind of like an Airbnb thing. But they closed registers, and they closed about half the registers in the apartment, and it iced up the coil. So they ran out of, the air conditioning system was working fine, but there wasn't enough airflow going across the coil to make it so that it wouldn't ice up. And this is something that we see here too, and we've talked about this in previous shows, is you are not doing yourself a favor by closing registers. You're actually potentially putting more strain on the system by closing registers. You're not going to save yourself electricity. And actually, this guy didn't save me any money because I had to get a service technician out there, and he was only in there for 3 months. So, a whopping, probably thinking he's going to save me a whopping 30, maybe $50 in energy cost was spent over a point, that one appointment's 4 times that. So just to have my guy come out there and say, oh yeah, I'm going to turn the system off and let it de-ice and turn it back on. And open all the registers. So do not open or do not close all the registers. It's just going to cause problems on your systems, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you can attest to this too, right, Dee Dee? Even during the heating season, it's not going to help you. And why would during the heating season, why would that not be beneficial?
Right. So what happens is it makes back pressure because people think they're balancing their air by turning down certain registers, thinking, this bedroom doesn't get enough air, so I'm going to close down this register in this other room, and that's going to force more air, and it doesn't. It just causes back pressure back to the unit and back to the air handler, in most cases a furnace, and that causes extra heat to build up, and it destroys, the electronics, puts extra wear and tear on the motor bearings. It's just overheating things. You think, well, it's a furnace, it's supposed to get hot.
And the heat exchanger, this is one thing that we talked about before. The heat exchanger is what, there's this little, I'll simplify it, but essentially a box that contains the fire that heats the air. The heat exchanger is designed to keep those air separate. So that box of fire, we don't want the byproduct combustion going into our house. That would be carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and trace elements and water vapor. So it's got to be contained. If that gets too hot and the stresses become too great on that heat exchanger, it cracks. And once you have a breach in that, now all of a sudden you got carbon monoxide going into your household, which then you go to sleep and you have the long sleep. So you want to make sure that heat's bad for a furnace. I know it's weird, but excessive heat. So that back pressure and more to the sense of why is it happening? We designed the system to work at a certain amount of airflow, a certain cubic feet per minute, CFM, of air that's moving through the system. And our ducts are designed to do that. By turning off registers, that 6, 8, 12-inch duct can only have so much. That pipe can only have so much volume of air going through it. Regardless, it's not going to build the pressure because it's not really designed to hold more pressure. Air doesn't really like to be pressurized. It's going to find ways out of the system, and actually, that's one of the things that can. You're just heating up. Not only are you putting stress on your system, but you're also heating up your attic or your crawl space because the air finds its way out of those ducts. Because we try at this day and age, we make sure the ducts are solid. But 20 years ago, I was using duct tape.
That's where duct tape came from.
Yeah, we didn't use mastic. We didn't use all the things that really seal the ducts that we do today. So most of the systems, and even we're allowed a certain amount of leakage to this day because of the fact that we can't get in behind the walls to replace those ductworks without a major overhaul, right? So we're allowed a certain amount of leakage as it is. So by putting that extra pressure, by closing the registers, you're actually just heating your wall space or your crawl space. You're not doing yourself any favor.
No, and you're still using the exact same amount of energy as if you had all the ducts open or all the ducts closed because it's still X amount of energy to run the system. So
that's not to say that we can design a system where we can have a zoned system, but that's a whole other thing. That's a matter of slows the fan speed, and we design it so that it actually works when those mechanical dampeners are closed for those rooms. That's something completely different. If you're just manually closing them, you're just asking for problems.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something else that we've come across quite a bit in the last couple weeks is overgrown bushes for your condensers outside, and people building like lattice structures like right up against it. And I know that there's probably some homeowner associations that require, that there's some kind of coverage, but give that piece of equipment space. I mean, like a good 3 to 4 feet for your lattice work. Because it needs air to circulate around it, and it will cause premature damage quickly. Even for new systems, we're seeing this.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is that when you turn your air conditioning on, you got that big box that's sitting outside that all of a sudden the fan turns on that's really loud, and if it's outside your bedroom window, you really hear it at night. That thing. If you impede the airflow around it, I mean, all it's doing is it's taking the heat from inside the house and dumping it outside. So if we impede that airflow, your system's not going to be working to the most efficient way that it can, and it does put strain on the system.
Yeah.
And we've seen that a lot, right? People putting, unfortunately, you have, all the best intentions, right, by trying to cover it, make it look pretty, but it's 3 or 4 feet around that thing. You need to have completely free, and I've seen people lean plywood and 2x4s up against it.
Why was that one? They had a poker table leaned up against on one side and the folding chairs on another side. Yeah. I was like, and it was running. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. So not only are you going to use more energy, but you're going to lead to the premature death of your equipment, which then is more expensive. We've seen systems like the system I was talking about at our apartment building in St. Paul is about 25, 30 years old. It's been pretty well maintained. It's fine. I've seen, but I've also seen systems that were installed 5-10 years ago that have been poorly maintained and people have done stress tests to it, and it's dead. We have to replace it. It's time for a whole new system. So, these things lead to catastrophic failure. Yeah,
we had a customer who owns a rental, and they allow pets, which is great, but they were not aware that the renter's dog, a male dog, was urinating on the condenser, and this condenser is 4 years old, and it totally trashed it. Yeah. I mean, we have to replace it.
We've got a picture of that on Facebook. Rosalie just posted a picture of one of those recently on her Facebook page where the bottom third of the condenser, the box outside, was eroded away from the irrigation system, from the sprinkler system, and or a dog peeing on it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, dog's pee is acidic.
Yeah. I mean, it just eats it. I mean, it's crazy how fast. So really be aware of that. Bushes, true story. My ex-brother-in-law lives here near us, and we put a new system in his place a few years ago. He had, I can't remember the name of it, but it's not pampas grass, but it's a similar type bush, kind of like agapantha, I guess, and totally let it grow over the entire thing. Like, he got the biggest lecture from me. I was like, what are you thinking? And it's like near the garage, so he sees it every day. Yeah. It's like, dude. So
that's gonna void your warranty, man.
Yeah. So he had the landscape crew come out there and trim it right away.
Yeah.
So.
Or take it out if you've got any trees or anything around your condenser. Take them out, especially if you planted some small ones. Take them out now. Yeah. Because things falling inside of the condenser, things leaning up against the condenser, you're just asking for problems. And Rosalie, you had a good question when we were off air. About you gonna come on?
Yes, I had to. I'm learning how to.
You're on mute for a second there.
Yep. I'm learning how to unmute things because I'm like, ooh, my button is stuck. Okay. Most people wish that I had a mute button walking around with me, so it's a whole new thing.
I was thinking the officer for a second. Anyway, never mind.
Just once. So I actually have two questions. One is that like in the house I have in Michigan, there's people don't want to, couple things in the Midwest, and Andrew, because you've spent so much time in Minnesota, you probably have seen this too. A lot of times backyards are not fenced in. It's just rolling backyard to rolling backyard. And so sometimes, whether it's homeowners association or just because you don't want that to be a focal point, and that you have a condenser in the yard, sometimes people will build kind of a structure, to kind of camouflage a little bit. Now, as you're saying, as long as it's got enough distance between the
Right.
condenser and it's got ventilation, that's okay, right? Is there an
Right.
industry standard for that, or?
I'm sure there is. I'm just going to say off the top of my head, like what Dee Dee was saying, 3 to 4 feet around it. So that should be enough space. There are some issues with putting things above them. Like we see a lot of package units that were installed underneath decks that we cannot replace now because you have to have a certain amount of space between your deck. So just on the sides of it, 3 to 4 feet. Also, it's a serviceable item. So we or another technician needs to be able to get in there, and if you've got a fence or a piece of lattice that's right up against it, we're gonna have to remove it to be able to service it anyway. So give your equipment some breathing room, because it's literally breathing. It's literally taking hot heat out of your house and dumping it outside. Or if you're using it as a heat pump, it's taking the heat from outside and dumping it inside. It needs that movement of air to be able to do that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
manufacturers also have, like, in the owner's
Installation.
manual, it will tell you how many inches are required for
Yeah.
clearance, minimum. But 3 to 4 feet, I mean, minimally 3 to 4 feet
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. And then I was chuckling, but I was muted. I was chuckling when you were talking about the male dog. Got some familiarity with that. And so, not that mine thinks he's alpha, but mine likes to just like, oh, I'm outside. Where's the closest place I can go?
Right.
So I understand all of that. So based on that, I've seen people take hoses, right? And actually they're trying to clean out their unit, their condenser, with a hose. And I'm always thinking, I don't know, do you want to use a hose for that? It seems like a bad idea, but you guys know much better.
Yeah, I mean, you can spray like straight down, like on the outside, to try and rinse off, some debris and stuff. If you caught your dog out there urinating on it, and rinse it off really quick. But you don't want to shoot directly into it, because you're just packing dirt and debris farther in the coil.
Yeah.
If you live on property that tends to have more dust and that kind of thing, it's just best to call and have it professionally cleaned, because one, you can void your warranty if you use the wrong equipment and chemicals to clean it. Plus, you don't want to do damage. I mean, you don't want to have to buy and repair something because you just didn't know.
Yeah, and I can't remember what chemical that was. There was a chemical cleaner that was for cleaning coils, and we were having issues with it, and I've come to find out other people were having issues with it. It was actually eating the coil. So you've got to be careful about the cleansers that you're using, the coil cleaners that you're using, as well, because they can actually dissolve certain metals. And it happened to be the new metal that was in this condenser. Actually, it wasn't the coil that was in the coil that's inside the furnace, and it was actually eating away at them, and we had to stop using that, obviously. But what you're talking about, spraying from the outside in, yeah, you're not. And to be honest, you're not going to be doing much, because of the fact that, when we come in and clean it, what we're trying to get off of there is not just the large debris, but there's actually a film that adheres to the fins of the coil, and that can decrease your efficiency by as much as 20%, and even a little bit higher sometimes. And we're talking about a thin film that you can't even see, but it impedes enough of that conductivity of moving the heat to the outside that you can see. For every dollar that you put in, you're losing 20 cents just to inefficiency. So now you're really only getting 80 cents out of the cooling out of it. So yeah, it's best to have that thing cleaned by a professional, at least on a yearly basis, or at least looked at on a yearly basis.
For sure.
Yeah.
And, I have a friend who has a big ranch out here, and we clean her system, both her coils, outdoor and indoor, twice a year. So the beginning of the season and the end of the season of summer, every time.
Yeah.
Because the end of the season is her furnace coil, beginning of the summer season is the outdoor. So
Yeah. Yeah, so spraying, nah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a
away
good
from
question.
that.
And dogs, yeah, keep your dogs away from it if you can. That is a good thing. Good idea about putting lattice around your coil if you've got an outdoor dog and your system's in the dog run or in the backyard where your dog runs around. Figure out some way to protect it from your dogs, or train your dogs not to pee on it. I don't know. I I've got 2 dogs, and they never peed on the coil. They peed on everything else. But yesterday one of my dogs peed on the other dog, so raised his leg right on top of him, and had to clean him off. So.
That is so not right.
Yeah. One of them's about 20 pounds, the other one's about 40 pounds. So yeah, it's like they were out. I took them out. They were on leash, and next thing you know, I'm like, Chris. I wasn't watching, and
Poor Chris.
yeah, Peter on his back.
Oh,
Golden shower.
he's the cutest dog too. Man, that's not right.
Oh, and that dog. He's 17 years old. He's holding on to life by like his fingernails. He's down. I don't even know if he's 17 pounds anymore because he's all skin and bones. You ever see that bone dog, no bone dog on TikTok?
Oh, yeah.
He's kind of like that. It's like one day he's all happy, and the next day he's just all. You pick him up, and he's just kind of sloppy. He just slumps all over the place.
Well, he's like 150 years old in people years,
exactly.
so give him a break.
He's so old.
Yeah, when you're that age, we're gonna shoot spitwads at you in the corner or something.
He walks around the house at night, does his sundowner, and just does the laps, and you're like, sit down for gosh sake.
I'm convinced that Grissom is a wizard. I'm telling you right now, he's a wizard in dog body because he's a million years old. He looks like he's been here since the dawn of time, and he's grumpy. He is so grumpy.
And I have to, and every once in a while, I look at him, I'm like, when he's sleeping, I'm like, I've got to check and make sure his chest is rising and make sure he's still breathing. 'Cause, like, I know he's going to go. And we're hoping, right? You hope that he passes while he's sleeping. Yeah. We're hoping we don't have to take him in to the vet and put him down because that's, 99% of the time that's what you end up with pets, right? Like we haven't had a dog that has died in their sleep. We've always had to put him down. So we're hoping he just dies a nice, peaceful sleep and never wakes up again. But who knows? What
is that? Because as a kid, I remember most of our animals, they would fall, just pass away in their sleep. But now, as an adult, I've always had to intervene.
I think we take too good of care of our dogs now. We feed them really good food, and we don't feed them Purina or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
The Safeway brands or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
The generic ones in the yellow packages back in the 80s.
Yep. Yeah. My pets eat better than I do. So, yeah.
Okay, on that, I think that's a show. So, one thing we want to remind everybody about is we do have these amazing specials right now. We've got a $49 HVAC tune-up. So we come in and do all this stuff and take a look at everything and see if it does need to be cleaned, make sure everything's working safely. We've got a $49 whole house electrical inspection, which, and you should probably do that about every 20 years because, ironically, electricity stuff runs out because it expands and contracts. We want to make sure, we'll go through the panel, we'll make sure everything's installed correctly, make sure nothing's funky. And we also have a plumbing water heater flush. We'll come in and flush your water heater and do a safety inspection on your water heater. Make sure it's got no carbon monoxide coming out of the flue. And you should be doing that if you're on a well, really almost yearly if you're on a well. And if you're on pipe treated water, NID water, you should be doing that probably about every couple of years. We do that one for $49. And the other crazy one is we just started a drain cleaning division. And we have a $97 drain cleaning special. So any drain in a residential home, we will come out and clear the drain for $97. If we don't clear it, we don't charge you anything. So we're trying to get that department up and running. So we're doing these crazy deals right now. So give us a call. You can reach us at 530-230-9092, 530-230-9092. You can find us on the web at abtplumbing.com. And please like us on Facebook. We've got a lot of this stuff on Facebook. We share these shows on Facebook. And we've got a lot of fun, interesting things there. And until then, we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks. Bye.